Hello,
Assalamu alaikum.
welcome back to Dastane Kiki.
I am Master Saab.
I am the Doctor Saab. Uh, this is a very special show today because 2 days ago it was Batman's anniversary. So we're gonna dedicate this show to all things Batman.
We're going to talk about Batman, we're going to talk about his events, and we're going to hopefully talk about some of the things you might not know and our impressions of Batman as we were growing up.
Yes, and we know there's a lot of Batman to cover up, and if that makes this episode into two-parter, then it might become a two-parter. All of Batman, a lot of Batman is good Batman.
So, Dr. Saab, tell me this. How did you first encounter Batman? How did you grow up with him? What was the deal?
My first encounter with Batman was, I think I was around 3 or 4 years old, and I borrowed a cassette videotape. Most of the young listeners out there won't know what a video cassette is, a VHS tape. And on it was an episode of Batman in which he's running around with a grenade, with a bomb of the classic,
that's
series.
That's not an episode, by the way.
That's not an
That
episode?
was the movie of the series,
the movie of the
60s
series.
Batman.
So I think that was the only thing
Yeah.
on the cassette, and
Right.
yeah, probably, and then after that, on and off, comic books and the Michael Keaton movie. It was out when I was growing
The
up.
Michael Keaton movie. That's what changed everything.
So tell us, the master, educate us on the Bat. What should we go chronologically? Let us first talk about what inspired the Bat.
All right, sure. So here's the thing: you have to understand something about that era.
Yeah.
Artists and writers were ripping off everything left and right. That's what the era was.
And I think Bob Kane was also under pressure that he needed to come up after Superman came out. They needed to come up with a costume.
So that's very interesting that one of the influences on Batman was Superman. Right? And it's understandable. DC had a hit with Superman, and from in the Action Comics, they wanted to have another hit, and Detective Comics' introduction of Batman was literally that. Now, the thing with Batman and the influences, you have to understand, we can look at it from two levels. There were the influences that Bob Kane himself said he had, and then there were the influences that later on people know that were there.
Yeah.
So the official influences were basically three, and these are pretty much what we grew up reading with on various books and documentaries. And there were tons of documentaries on Batman, and certainly academic books on comic books right after Tim Burton's Batman. So,
Yeah.
So the one thing which a lot of our generation know about, maybe you, younger generation too as well, is that Batman was primarily influenced by, and by primarily I mean that's what the official books of that era used to say a lot, by Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh.
Leonardo da Vinci had this sketch of a glider, the shape of a bat, and I remember, and Leonardo da Vinci made a quote, said, "If man is to fly, it will be on the wings of a bat."
Yeah, I think I remember seeing one of those sketches in one of, I think it's funny enough in a Assassin's Creed game. And the sketch actually reminds me of the way Batman was drawn back in the 1940s.
Exactly. So Bob Kane actually had sketches, and those sketches are often found in various books.
Was Bob Kane also a writer, or was he an artist?
He was primarily an artist. He did he has various credits in various issues of comics as being the writer, but we pretty much know that a lot of those were just ghostwriters. He really didn't write much. But with the wings of a bat, it is very interesting that many scholars would actually now say that those sketches inspired by Leonardo da Vinci's the wings of a bat, the glider, were actually done after the fact, put in the books later to kind of give that impression. Though we grew up with that.
Yeah.
The main influence of other than that, he talks about the Mark of Zorro.
That they even show in the very first,
Right, so that's
in all his
pretty much
origin stories.
understandable, and we know Zorro is definitely influenced. Then there is a movie, a really cool movie called The Bat Whisperer. This is a movie from the 30s, although there's an earlier version from the 20s as well. The Bat Whisperer is has been an enormous influence on Batman.
Hmm.
Mainly because there was a bat-type figure, thief running around in this abandoned mansion trying to steal something, and he
Why
had that
why
cape.
was he called a bat whisperer?
Well, he was just a thief who dressed up as a bat.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and the silhouette and the shadows, all that was a big influence on him. But in my opinion, the biggest influence from the Bat Whisperer,
Hmm.
and by the way, you can actually watch it on YouTube because it's a public
It's a
domain
public
movie,
movie,
and
okay.
it's there, is the bat signal.
So there was a bat signal in that, huh?
But it wasn't a bat signal that the police used to summon Batman, but it was this lamp, and this bat shape came on, and it scared everybody in the house, and so that was interesting. Although I leave the spoilers. If you go and watch the movie The Bat Whisperer, it gives you an interesting origin of what that bat signal really was. I leave it up to the viewers. to look into it.
Interesting. I did not know this. I think if I have time, I will also go on YouTube and watch this
All right.
movie.
So can we talk about the actual real influence
Yes,
of Batman?
please go ahead.
So the actual real influence of Batman has been, and this is the popularly accepted now, and is the Shadow.
Most of the people who do not know the Shadow, if they want to know about the Shadow, they can actually watch the Alec Baldwin movie.
Yes, they can, and it's actually quite a good, true to the original source
Yeah.
material movie, The Shadow.
Even
He
though
is
I
a-
would never understand how he changes his nose in that movie.
Oh, hypnosis.
He changes his nose through hypnosis?
Oh, everything. The fact that he can कहते हैं, what do you call it? Blend in into the shadows, turn visible, cloud people's mind, change his appearance, change his voice. It's all hypnosis taught to him by Tibetan monks. But with the Shadow, what's more important is this: he's a rich millionaire, billionaire, whatever, playboy, Lamont Cranston,
Yeah.
who goes out in the night, disguises himself and fights crime. And the famous line, "Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?" The Shadow does. Now, what's interesting about the Shadow and Batman is this: it's accepted. Bob Kane didn't really talk too much about that, but the writer of Batman, the original writer, Bill Finger, he pretty much online says that my first ever Batman story, which was the first appearance of Batman, Detective Comics, is pretty much his take on a very specific The Shadow pulp magazine episode. And so it's there. But what's more interesting for Batman fans is this: the Shadow actually makes an appearance in a 70s Batman comic.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
How so?
He just does so. He actually comes as this person who's come back out of retirement. In fact, our readers can Google it up.
And listeners.
Our listeners. Yes. It was Batman. Let me look this up. Batman 253.
Okay.
Batman 253. Just Google Batman 253, and it's not just some pastiche or a little appearance of the Shadow. He's there on the cover. The whole story is about the Shadow.
By then, the Shadow was a public domain character? Or
No, the Shadow still isn't a public domain
Then
character.
how did DC get the rights for him?
Oh, DC did. The DC,
DC actually went through legal.
Yeah, DC
okay,
has,
okay.
and they have also in the past published the Shadow comics.
Oh, okay.
Now, so that was something that happened, and then now upcoming later on, for those who want to keep up to date, there is the Shadow, an official proper The Shadow and the Batman crossover about to come out through DC Comics.
Very nice. So, two things I got from this conversation about Batman's origin. Number one, why the hell don't these Tibetan monks just come and crime fight? Because they have trained the Shadow, they have trained the Batman, they have trained Iron Fist, they have trained Doctor Strange. Now imagine for a country suppressed by China, they can essentially take over the world, but they do not do because they are pacifists.
And trust me, that list, right, is even more exhaustive than that. There's also the Amazing Man. There's the Green Llama. It just goes on and on. Peter Thunderbolt.
All these third world countries have these heroes emerging from them. The Phantom goes to Africa, becomes all powerful. So yeah, there's something going on there. So now let's talk about the Batman. And we've talked about how the Batman was formed when he was in fire. Yeah, one little question that I had. One little question that I had is this Batman was like an answer because they weren't more successful comics like the Superman. Why make him like the different end of the spectrum altogether? On one hand, we have a super powered god who can literally lift up like locomotives and faster than trains and whatnot. And then at the other end, we just have a man who's dressed up as a bat. What's your take on? I know. Well, I'm just asking for your take on that. Why do you think that?
Well, it's very simple. You've done something, it's a hit, right? And the other thing that was happening, you have to understand, when Superman was all over the place, various companies did a lot of takes on Superman.
Yeah.
So and you had a lot of lawsuits going around as well. You know, I mean, the famous one is Captain Marvel Shazam, which wasn't a DC character to begin with. It was Fawcett. And there were others. There's this gentleman which came out with just one issue, Wonder Man, and DC sued them. And so there was a lot of them which weren't sued that went into publication. A lot of them didn't make it.
Okay.
Right. So what happens is this: look, we've already done this. This is great. Now let's do the other end of the spectrum. And put a stamp there. And there were other characters of that time who were before that, there were a lot of characters who were grim and gritty, going in the shadows, which were very successful. So that was also that. With another thing with Batman is another character, a pulp serialized character, which was very famous at the time, was a character called the Black Bat, and he literally was a gentleman with a cowl and a cape, and the cape was shaped exactly like Batman's.
Okay.
And he was a crime fighter at night, grim and gritty. But that influence, that's the influence, that's a little controversy, because that's the one that actually resulted in a lawsuit.
Oh, against DC Comics.
Yes.
Interesting.
And it was settled off court. And if our listeners just Google the Black Bat cover pulp, they will see something very interesting. It's very interesting. However, the Black Bat, in my opinion, visually influenced a lot the Batman. I'll tell you what I feel, and we're going to go off a topic a little because it's connected.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what he actually influenced more.
What?
Daredevil.
Oh.
Because the origins of the Black Bat is this. He was a district attorney who was going up against the mob. So the mob blinded him with acid.
Oh.
So then he went to surgery and he realized, I have these abilities to see in the night and the darkness.
Like a bat.
So, but in the day he was a district attorney pretending to be blind.
Pretending to be blind.
Yes.
So he was Daredevil by day, Batman by night. And why isn't he a cool character right now? I do not understand.
Characters get forgotten. You know. And he wasn't really a comic book character.
Do characters get forgotten or do they get retconned? Is the question.
That's another post.
Yeah. So that was the brief history of how the Bat was created. I think you guys can comment and ask questions because the master is very well educated in these.
Having said that, because I know people are passionate about their hobbies and fans of fans. So I just wanna put a little disclaimer. Just because the character was influenced, inspired, or a complete ripoff of something does not make that character a bad character.
Well, we'll tell that to the Deadpool fans out there. So I think there's something that they need to know, not Batman fans. But let's start off with the Batman Year One. Even though it came in the 1980s, but
it was probably one of the most influential comics on Batman movies subsequently.
Batman, exactly.
I'll tell you what really changed Batman. It was a Tim Burton Batman movie, and we kind of forget that it's not just in the golden age, in the 30s and 40s, Batman was all colorful and whatnot, and then he became darker. No, he was pretty much a colorful character as far as the mass media representation of Batman goes throughout the 80s even, right? We all grew up with the 60s Batman, which were on the reruns and on videotapes. Our other exposure to Batman before that was Super Friends cartoons and Batman cartoons. It wasn't until Tim Burton that he suddenly went dark and gritty. He wasn't.
Yeah, let's talk about the Batman TV series. Let's go according to the years rather than publication.
Having said that, then if you're doing that, let me just quickly also point out that initially, when Batman first came out from Detective Comics 27 onwards, he was pretty grim and gritty. by today's standards and by those standards. In fact, he was more so
And
than
he
he
used to he used to walk around with a gun.
Oh yeah, he used to have a .45, used to shoot criminals, used to kick them in the head, and he used to make wisecracks like, "You got what you deserve, scum," and by that he meant he broke someone's neck and that person was dead.
I think the reason why he stopped using a gun and stopped killing, this whole idea, I think a lot of people, the biggest problem that they have with Batman versus Superman is that, oh my God, Batman killed. That's one rule that he never breaks. Well, that rule was just there because of the Comic Codes Authority, in which censorship
came in, and then certain the bosses change or policies change, but it's not something new. Oh my God, Batman kills. Batman has killed. And talking about killing, well, we'll talk about that when we get to that. So that's where Batman starts. Then he becomes lighter. And
so did Batman ever have a radio show like Superman did?
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of. But no, yes, he did.
He did?
Yes, he did. I'll tell you why. Because Batman, it's very interesting that a lot of the characters in Batman that are now iconic Batman characters and
were introduced in a different media. Yeah.
Yes. For example, Alfred Pennyworth, Alfred the Butler, was not introduced in the comics. He was actually introduced in the Batman radio show.
Yeah. So just like the case of Superman, Lex Luthor was introduced in the radio show. Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
we should do a Superman episode as well then.
We will.
Right.
So as
other characters, Harley Quinn was from the animated series, and I'm sure
Mr. Freeze was from the animated series as well.
Oh yeah, I think so. From the '60s one. Sorry, the early '80s one. Yes, he was. I remember, and they made a big deal about it because they really wanted him to hit big. Because in the opening title sequence of that particular cartoon, Batman, Batman and the Boy Wonder, they fight crime from villains like the Joker, the Catwoman, and then they made a point, and the cool and groovy Mr. Freeze, and they actually emphasized and the cool and groovy or something like that.
Cool and groovy. There was nothing groovy about Mr. Freeze. But tell me this. So let's start off. Batman. He was a crime fighter, fighting crimes and whatnot. Then they decided to add color by giving him a sidekick.
Yeah,
I think, and this was obviously the influence of Spider-Man, in which how.
Spider-Man wasn't around then.
Wasn't Batman introduced after Spider-Man?
What are you talking about?
No, not Batman. I'm talking about Robin.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. Robin pretty much entered. I think it was issue. In fact, when Batman issue 1 came out, that's after Death Comics. That's when the Robin, the Boy Wonder. No, he makes it even before that actually. Yes, there's a famous Detective Comics cover in which Batman's holding this little little round thing, and he's ripping out of the cover of that round thing and introducing Robin. So that was in the 40s.
Really?
Yes, definitely. And the Boy Wonder's introduction was there for a very simple reason. They wanted kids to be able to relate to Batman as well.
Exactly.
You know. And then when the 60s Batman show came on, I mean, you have to understand, from the 40s onwards till the 80s, that's a big chunk of time. Batman was a cheerful, happy, colorful person with a colorful kid running around with him.
Yeah, you're right. I just confirmed 1940, Detective Comics 38. So
and that was before even Batman #1. So that was there, and they were having space adventures, and they were having and he was polite.
Yeah.
He wasn't a jerk like he is now, and he doesn't apologize for everything, even though he would get the whole Justice League into trouble.
Yeah, but that's because it's cool to not apologize nowadays. Well, I mean, that's how kids are.
Interestingly enough, the Master Saab is actually a parent, right? And this actually happened. And I told my child, he did something which he shouldn't have. And I said, you apologize right now. And his response was this: no. Why not? Batman sorry nahi bolta.
So no wonder the comic code came into play.
Personally, if you ask me, I prefer my 60s, 70s, 80s colorful, the TV series Batman. Yeah. This new Batman that everybody likes, he's not a good influence on my kid, man. He really isn't. Man.
True. So the Batman of the 60s.
Oh, by the way, on a similar note, another thing why this Batman is scary because they focus so much on his origins. My kid also one day said, Abu, Batman के ना अम्बी अब्बू नहीं होते. I'm like, shit, are you threatening me? What are you doing? रात को उठेंगे मरे हुए क्या?
So creating his own origin story. Well, yeah. So okay. So Batman the TV show from the random documentaries and everything that I have seen.
Oh, I grew up with it.
You grew up with it.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about behind the scenes in
Right.
which it actually resurrected Batman.
Oh yes,
in the mainstream.
It's what brought Batman to the mainstream.
It was going down, and it was campy, it was funny, and
And it was
that's what made people watch
Yes,
it.
and I'll tell you what, and from these same documentaries, they actually tell you what the philosophy behind the show was. Very interesting. They said we'd make it really cheesy, really campy, to the extent that we're going to put in all these innuendos that
Yeah.
Disney does now that only adults would get.
Exactly.
And adults would find it funny beyond anything, while kids will just find it absolutely amazing and you know, like incredible and adventurous and exciting.
Yeah, I know. I would recommend everybody to watch it, but the people who have never seen that show and are die-hard Batman fans, do not watch it. With this in your mind that this is your Batman, the Batman, the dark, grim, gritty. They don't even mention his origins in that.
They can't.
They don't
Right.
say that his parents were killed because it brings you down. This was supposed to be a funny, fun show, and in which you just log in and
that's
have a
another
good
thing.
time.
I think there's another thing that goes around a lot is Batman isn't like this. Batman isn't that. You're not a true Batman fan. Any character that's been around for so long is no one's character.
It's no one's
There
character.
will always
yeah.
be phases and different interpretations of that character, right? And fine, I understand some people, you can go, okay, this particular specific interpretation of Batman is my Batman. And you probably do that because that's the Batman you grew up with, but there is no one Batman.
But keeping that in mind, the Catwoman from that show, I think that was after Princess Leia. That was the one lady that we used to be crazy about.
Right. But because I'm a like
There are two
big
different.
time,
There are two different
yes.
Catwomen. There was a African American Catwoman,
Right.
and then there
And
was
that and you know how we keep going. Oh, you know, everything used to be so racist, and now we have more diversity, and you know we have these superheroes get recasted, and you know we have the Catwoman movie, right?
Yeah.
In which, oh man, there's so much, like, the movie was bad, but there's a lot of praise. Oh yes, you know, she's casted as a black woman or whatever. Well, it was done before as well in the 60s.
Diversity, feminism, power.
No, but I mean, it's nothing new. We had a black Catwoman in the 60s show, and that was very cool for its time, and people are making hoorah about it now, but it happened before.
It happened before, but that's the thing. That's what they don't want you to believe, man. That's what they hide from you. That's how they control you, Master Saab.
Yes. I mean, look at Star Trek from the 60s. But we won't go to start right now. Batman.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, there is a very cool fan movie somewhere on YouTube in which the 60s Batman meets the classics Star Trek. Yeah, very nice. You should check it out.
I'll have to look that up. Another cool, interesting fact was the Joker from the Batman show. The best part about him that I used to find hilarious, but now as I'm growing up, I'm like, it's cool, is that the actor was a famous actor, Cesar Romero or something, yeah. And he refused to shave off his mustache.
Oh, I was just going to say that. I was going to say, actually, my coolest thing was that, but, so there he was in his old Joker makeup and stuff.
And
you
if
can
you
see
look
this,
closely,
you'll
you'll see a
sometimes you
mustache.
don't even need to look closely. It's there. You can see there's a mustache and there's white over it. It was really funny.
I can't show this to you readers right now, but I'll show it to Master.
Listeners.
The listeners, that my phone background is the classic Batman.
Oh, nice,
70s Batman show.
Adam West and
Burt
Ward?
Ward,
Right.
who played his ward.
So then we came to Tim Burton.
Yeah, but we'll get to Tim Burton in our second show, I think, because this time's up.
All right. So this was a good introduction
this
of the
was a
Batman
good-
you did not grow up with, maybe.
Yeah.
In the next episode, we'll talk about.
In the next episode, we will brush up on the grim and gritty Batman. But I think I think everybody knows about that. I want to get into the comic book. I want to know what is the best
Fine.
Batman story that Master Saab has
We'll
read.
do that. We'll look at the comics, and we'll also touch upon Tim Burton's Batman, because that
We have
had
to.
a lot of influence in
We
what
have
came
to,
later.
yeah. And we'll talk about our favorite Batman comic. We'll talk about our favorite Batman moment, and we'll also talk about our least favorite Batman comic and our least favorite Batman moment.
And since we started this with Batman's origins, we'll end it with what characters came after Batman, which were obvious Batman influenced or
Rip-offs.
inspired. All right.
So till then, have a week.
Allah Hafiz.